Good evening, and welcome to the CCM Fans Report. I'm Arthur Fischel.
And I'm Martha Fischel. Tonight, we unpack a chaotic afternoon in Auckland, where the drama certainly wasn't restricted to the football pitch.
Indeed, a victory in Auckland that has left us in the curious position of being the unintentional architects of our greatest rival's success. We also investigate the technical merits of standing on an opponent's back, and we sit down with Viktor Grassfeld to discuss the tactical implications of momentum and dietary discipline.
Let's get stuck into it, Arthur. Time for the match report.
We turn our attention now to the events across the Tasman, a fixture that was as meteorologically unstable as the Mariners' current league standing. The squad travelled to Auckland for a Sunday afternoon encounter that was defined by a strike of clinical precision and a subsequently prolonged period of high-voltage atmospheric theatre.
It was a bizarre one from the start, Arthur. There was a lot of confusion on the forum about the kit. Apparently, we chose to play in white because yellow is just too bright and optimistic for a Sunday afternoon. And then there's the mystery of our missing Japanese winger.
The Tamagotchi situation. It appears that one of our supporters has diagnosed the issue as a simple battery failure. They suggested that the 2024 model requires the back screws to be tightened and a fresh charge before it can hit the pitch again. A digital tragedy that I suspect reflects a broader lack of organisational energy.
Well, the energy was certainly high regarding the standings. If we won, we handed the Premiership to Newcastle. If we lost, Auckland stayed in the hunt. It was a proper head-scratcher. One fan even said that if we started cheering for a loss, we'd be no better than Spurs fans.
A chilling thought that effectively ended any objective debate. We are many things, Martha, but we are not Tottenham. The match itself began with a display of pedal hygiene in the 16th minute. James Donachie appeared to have mistaken the opposition's back for a particularly absorbent welcome mat.
I think I saw 50 replays of him standing on the poor lad's back, Arthur. It felt like the VAR was trying to find a reason to send him off, but he got away with a yellow. He really needs to learn to wipe his feet before he enters the field of play.
Indeed, a huge let-off that allowed us to capitalise 3 minutes later. Ali Agla finished a superb counter-attack to give us the lead, a goal of significant quality that left the Auckland crowd in a state of stunned silence and the fans at home in a state of deep existential conflict.
It's the most bittersweet win we've ever had. We're finally winning a game, but every time the ball hits the net, a Newcastle fan gets their wings. It is a very strange feeling to be the source of their happiness.
It is a level of unintentional philanthropy that I find frankly distressing. However, nature soon intervened to distract us from our altruism. By the 27th minute, the rain was coming at the players sideways, and the sky had turned a shade of grey that I usually reserve for my Monday mornings.
And then came the big one, a massive flash of lightning, a loud pop through our speakers here at home, and a crash of thunder that nearly knocked me off the sofa. Andrew Redmayne took a knee immediately. He looked less like a professional athlete and more like an ancient prophet, appealing to the gods to stop the rain.
A sensible choice. As the commentator quite rightly pointed out, the safety of the players and spectators is apparently paramount, a subtle nod to the broadcaster that left me wondering if it was a happy accident or a very clumsily scripted plug. The resulting delay forced everyone into the tunnel for 30 minutes, though I noticed several supporters remained in the stands, waving large flags on remarkably tall poles.
I was more concerned about those poles acting as lightning rods than the score at that point, Arthur, and the commentator didn't help. He claimed the lightning had forced players, officials, and spectators off the field of play. I don't remember the fans being on the pitch, Arthur, though apparently they were busy climbing up on the top deck.
Martha, he clearly meant the top deck. It appears the local vowel shift is as unstable as the Auckland weather, and such gags are quite frankly beneath the dignity of this broadcast.
Oh, come on, Arthur, as if we haven't been here before. But you have to admit, seeing the bright sun come out just as play resumed while everyone was still soaking wet was typical.
The game itself should have been buried in the 88th minute. Sabitagnar was served a stunner of a cross from Agla. It was effectively a platter, but he managed to keep the ball as far from the net as possible. The commentator noted it was on his favoured left foot.
Which implies he has a least favourite left foot. Is that his right one, or just a placeholder? It was a stressful finish, and I didn't help matters when I looked at the other TV and saw live vision of the car park at Lake Haven Shops. There was a car doing circle work with smoke all around it. You could hardly see it.
It was the V8 supercars, Martha. Matt Payne was performing a celebratory skid. A confusing moment for us all, but ultimately a gutsy 1-0 win. However, as we crossed back to the broadcast, the tone was remarkably grim. The Auckland players were being interviewed in such somber terms that one would have thought they had lost their homes and possessions to a bushfire while being entirely uninsured.
They're a bit dramatic when they lose, aren't they? But the drama didn't end on the pitch, Arthur. The Newcastle fans have been practically throwing a parade in our honour. They are actually thanking us for the Premiership.
An intolerable consequence of our own competence. To be the source of a Jet's joy is a spiritual burden I was not prepared to carry. Although the commentator attempted to justify it by labelling them our arch-rivals.
Arch-rivals. Honestly, Arthur, rival implies they are actually on our level. We just happen to hate them the most. We're deep in arch-enemy territory now.
A semantic distinction with which I find myself in total agreement. We might have given them the plate, but as one fan put it, we still hold the guardrail. And for the men, the concrete core sample remains safely bolted down at Tuggerah. A sentiment of such disciplined vindictiveness that I find it quite admirable. We'll leave the match report there. Joining us now from his study to discuss the tactical management of the Auckland win is our lead continental consultant, Viktor Grassfeld. Viktor, it was a gritty performance across the Tasman. From your perspective, how did the squad handle the defensive transition given the high stakes for our neighbours in Newcastle?
Arthur, it is a question of the golden goat. In my village, there was a man named Gregor who owned a goat that provided the finest milk in the province. One day Gregor discovered that if he allowed the goat to wander into his enemy's garden, the goat would eat the weeds, which was good, but it would also fertilize the enemy's soil, which was a disaster. Gregor spent the entire winter sitting in the mud, crying because his own generosity was making his enemy's cabbage grow too large. We are currently Gregor, Arthur. We are sitting in the mud with a very confused goat.
And what of the weather intervention? How does a tactical unit maintain its shape and internal discipline during a 30-minute pause in momentum of that magnitude?
During the Great Freeze of '94, the local pub in my village ran out of coal. The proprietor, a man with one ear and no soul, told us we must sit in the dark and think about our sins until the delivery truck arrived. We did not talk. We simply stared at the frost on our boots. When the coal finally arrived, 3 men had forgotten how to stand up, and 1 man believed he was a turnip. You cannot maintain shape in the dark, Arthur. You can only hope that when the lights come back on, you are still the same man who was winning before the clouds arrived.
Speaking of discipline, how does a defender justify such unconventional contact with an opponent's back, as we saw in the 16th minute?
It is a matter of the rug of penance, Arthur. In my village there was a man named Vasile, who believed that the only way to truly understand the texture of the earth was to have his neighbor stand upon his shoulders while he lay in the dust. Vasile claimed it sharpened his vision for the harvest. Donachie was merely seeking a better vantage point for the incoming cross, Arthur. He was using the opponent as a human stepping stone to the divine. It was a measure of the spirit.
I see. So the Vasile method is what kept the clean sheet intact.
It is the only way to truly measure the soil, Martha.
Right, a lot to think about there ahead of the derby. Viktor Grassfeld, thank you for those tactical insights. It is time now for the Mooned Report, a segment in which we attempt to find meaning in the statistics of a season that has frequently defied rational analysis. Following our excursion to the Shaky Isles, the celestial standings have shifted once more. The Mariners have mooned 8 teams so far this season.
That's right, Arthur, and that tally is currently supplemented by our 8 half-moons and 9 lunar eclipses.
A distribution that reflects a certain symmetry of frustration. 8, 8 and 9. It is a record that suggests we have been almost exactly as successful as we have been unsuccessful, with a slight tilt toward the void.
Exactly, and it's left the ladder in a very strange state. Newcastle are officially the premiers now, sitting clear at the top of the table thanks to our victory over Auckland.
A table that rewards our greatest enemy for our own hard work. It is a perverse outcome, but one that leads us directly to the final act of this regular season.
The big one, round 26, the F3 derby away from home.
The final fixture, a game that carries no weight for our own finals aspirations, yet possesses enough historical baggage to sink a small merchant vessel. This week, it feels less like administrative maintenance and more like the preparation for a defensive siege.
Even if we aren't playing for finals, we are playing for pride. And after the drama in Auckland, the atmosphere is going to be interesting. I've seen reports that the Newcastle fans are planning on giving us a very warm, very smug thank you for the Premiership the moment we arrive.
A level of toxic positivity that I find quite frankly nauseating. To be thanked by a jet is the social equivalent of being congratulated by a magpie for having a shiny head. I expect our supporters to provide a suitably cold reception.
Oh, I don't think that'll be a problem. The forum is already buzzing about the Hygiene plate. Everyone seems convinced that the only reason they want the Premiership is so they can take the trophy straight down to the local pawnbroker, just to see what they can get for it.
A remarkably pragmatic assessment of local tradition in the region. There is a high probability that the Premiership Plate will be treated more as a convertible asset than a commemorative object.
Exactly. They might have the plate for now, but everyone knows it's only on lease, and we'll be heading up the M1 next week to remind them exactly who the landlords of the F3 really are. Imagine the optics, Arthur. 2 trophies being raised in the same stadium. One they're holding because we did their dirty work in Auckland, and one we're keeping because we've already done the job on them.
It is a curious symmetry. It is essentially a Mariners' victory parade where we have graciously allowed the opposition to provide the venue and a celebratory piece of kitchenware for the occasion. We have effectively outsourced the storage of the Premiership Plate to Newcastle for the winter, while retaining the actual structural foundation of the region in our own trophy cabinet.
We're keeping that core sample where it belongs, Arthur. It's non-negotiable.
That concludes our report for this evening. A season defined by a symmetry of frustration, yet one that yields a final opportunity for local dominance.
We'll be right there with you spiritually, if not physically, for the final round in Newcastle. Let's finish it the right way, up the coast.
Until next time, this has been the CCM Fans Report.